Hi guys, and welcome to another episode of Federico Talks Watches. Today, I wanted to discuss a topic that I noticed a lot of people talking about on the Facebook group, and a lot of people also spreading misinformation, either knowingly it's not maliciously. I guess people are just misinformed, and that topic is watch servicing. How often should you get your watch service? How much would it cost? When is it necessary? Watch servicing in general. Before we get started, let me do a quick wristwatch check. And today I'm wearing the Panerai Radio Mirror. I believe it's the 380. It's the one I did the review with Tristano. So back to the subject, guys. Servicing your watch. Well, having worked in the retail world, I was also guilty for spreading a few of these myths. And I think the biggest one in the beginning is you need to get your watch serviced every 4 to 5 years. I'd certainly tell my clients that when they bought a watch and they said, Federico, how often should I get the watch serviced? And you're like, about every 4 to 5 years. And you know what? With experience and having been around more watches, I've come to realize that is absolutely not true and very rarely the case. 4 to 5 years is a very short time frame. I've owned a few, I own my fair share of Swiss watches, and you know what? I've yet to send any of them for service yet. Granted, my oldest watch is about 8 years old. But the truth is, 4 to 5 years is just a number people say to cover their behinds, so to speak. A watch, there is no time frame. It should be sent in for service when one of these two things happens. One of these three things happens. One, you damage it, in which case send it in for service, get it fixed up. Two, when it starts losing time, when you put it on your wrist and you notice, it's running a little slower than usual, that's usually an indication of the oils drying up. Or number three, and probably the easiest to tell, is the action of the crown. As the oils dry up and metal on metal, the contact becomes a little bit more blatant, you'll notice the crown starts to stiffen up. And, when the action is not as smooth as it once was, is a good indication to send it in for service. Now, might it happen within 4 or 5 years? Sure, it might. But in my experience, as I said, 8 years going strong, 0 issues with any of my watches so far, knock on wood. So that's the first myth. 4 to 5 years, I believe that to be greatly exaggerated. But let me know what you guys think. And the second, myth or misinformation, so to speak, is servicing costs. Now, yes, servicing is not cheap, but servicing is not expensive to the point where I even remotely consider it as a factor of whether I'm going to buy a watch or not. I've never been sitting down thinking, pros and cons for buying my next watch. It's going to cost a fortune to service. It doesn't factor in, not for me at least. Servicing, your average service is about $500-$600 for the Rolex level watch, a little bit less for the Longines and the Tag Heuers, and it can be up to $1,500 to $2,000 for a Patek with complications. Standard Calatrava, about $900 to $1,100. $900 to $1,100. Complicated watch could be up to $2,500. Tourbillon a little bit more. Now, when you calculate, an average Rolex service costs about $500-$600. Over the realistic 10 years it's probably going to take until you need a service, that's $50-$60 a year. Now, I don't want to be presumptuous and presume what you guys can and can't afford, but for me, $50-$60 a year is not enough to steer me away from a watch that I really, really want to own. I just think people blow these service costs way out of proportion. However, mentioning that, there are a few tricks you guys can do when it's time to service your watch to save you a little bit of money. Now, the way servicing works is you go to your AD and you give it to them and they send it to the company, or you can send it to the company directly. And you wait a couple of weeks, and this whole process should take about 8 to 10 weeks. But after a couple of weeks, you'll get a letter in the mail from the company with an estimate, a service estimate, and everything is going to be broken down. What it costs to do everything. And there's a few options on that estimate which you can opt out of. Things that I think you can do and should do to not only save yourself a little bit of money, but also save your watch, in my opinion. Now, in this estimate, it's going to be broken down. The first thing is going to say movement service, and that's the essential one. It might say something like $350. Replace all the gaskets, $25. Things like that are fine, but here are 3 things that are on every service estimate. Every service estimate is going to have these 3 things, and I would usually opt out of all 3, especially with a sports watch. The first one is going to say polishing the case. Now, unless your case is really beaten up, I wouldn't polish it. It removes value from the watch. It removes metal from the watch. My watch would have to be in pretty bad shape for me to want to polish it. And that usually costs you, depending on the watch. If it's a Rolex, $150. If it's an AP, about $800. So, let's say $150 saved right there. The next thing they're probably gonna, say is replace the dial. Either a new dial has come out with new lume, or maybe your dial might have taken a little bit of sun damage. Regardless, unless it really bothers you, keep the dial. Keep the original dial. It is, really helps with the value of the watch, and most collectors, prefer that. And the same thing goes with the hands. It's going to say, replace hands. And both those, the dial's going to run you $250, the hand's another $100. So there you go. You've saved, about $150 on the polishing, $200 on the dial, $100 on the hands. Now, you can opt in for these services. I'm not saying, don't do it, but, it's an easy way to save money, and generally it's better for the value of the watch. There is a little caveat here, and it is one of these optional services which you should always opt in if offered, and that is replace crystal. Now, over the life of the watch, your crystal could get nicks on the side, and that really, really can compromise waterproofing and can really hurt your dial down the line. So the one exception to the rule is whenever a watch company offers a crystal replacement, I tend to opt in and take it, just because it really helps with the integrity of the case. Now, with all that said, there are tips and tricks to save money, but the important thing to remember is, guys, servicing is not a common occurrence in the life of the watch. For as far as you own the watch, you might service it 4 times in your lifetime if there's no mechanical failures. So it's a rare occurrence. It's not as costly as you guys think. And, even if you do get stuck having to service, here's a few tips to keep in mind to keep the cost down. Anyway, guys, what did you think? Was the information helpful? Leave a comment in the comment section below, and please like this video if you found it useful. It really does help, and I really, thank you guys for helping me grow my channel. It's great motivation, and I'm having a ton of fun doing it. Anyway, guys, please don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will catch you in the next one.